The day of our honeymoon had dawned bright and promising. Sunlight streamed through the curtains of our cozy hotel room, and a gentle breeze rustled the curtains. As I sat at the vanity, a sense of excitement and anticipation filled the air. Today was the beginning of our new life together, and I couldn't wait to embark on this adventure with John. I carefully applied my makeup, my hands a little unsteady from the butterflies in my stomach. My wedding dress, now hanging gracefully in the closet, served as a beautiful reminder of the magical day that had brought us together. I couldn't help but smile as I remembered the way John had looked at me when I walked down the aisle. Then, as if on cue, my phone rang. I glanced at the screen, and my heart skipped a beat when I saw it was John calling. I answered with a cheerful, "Hey, honey." His voice, usually warm and soothing, was strained, and it sent an unexpected shiver down my spine. "Listen, I need you to do something, and it's important," he said, his urgency cutting through my honeymoon bliss. My brows furrowed, and I set my makeup brush down. "What's wrong, John? You sound panicked." "Just promise me no matter what happens, you won't go to our rendezvous point," he pleaded, his voice quivering with anxiety. My heart raced as I tried to make sense of his request. "John, you're scaring me. What's going on?" "I can't explain right now," he replied, his voice growing even more frantic. "But please trust me. Stay away from the rendezvous point until I tell you otherwise. I love you, and I'll explain everything later." Before I could respond with more questions, he hung up abruptly, leaving me in stunned silence. The excitement and happiness I'd felt just moments ago had been replaced by confusion and worry. What could possibly be so urgent that John had to call and make such a mysterious request on our honeymoon day? After John's abrupt and cryptic phone call, I sat on the edge of our honeymoon suite's plush bed, my mind a whirlwind of confusion and anxiety. The room, which had initially felt like a haven of love and celebration, now seemed to close in on me with its walls echoing my unanswered questions. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong, and John's words continued to haunt me. "No matter what happens, you won't go to our rendezvous point." Those words played on a loop in my mind, making it impossible to focus on anything else. I reached for my phone and tried calling John repeatedly, but each call went straight to voicemail. Panic welled up inside me as I imagined the worst possible scenarios. What if he was hurt? What if he was in trouble and needed my help? Unable to sit still any longer, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I reasoned that whatever was happening, I needed to find John and make sure he was okay. I didn't know the reason behind his cryptic message, but the fear of losing him was more powerful than any confusion or uncertainty. Leaving the hotel room behind, I made my way to the rendezvous point, my heart heavy with worry and anticipation. Each step felt like an eternity, my mind racing with thoughts of what I might find when I got there. The air was thick with tension as I approached the designated rendezvous point. It was a picturesque spot by the ocean where John and I had planned to spend the first day of our honeymoon, soaking in the beauty of the azure sea and golden sands. As I reached the spot, my heart sank. There was no sign of John. The beach was serene, the waves gently lapping ashore, but the emptiness of the place made it feel desolate. I glanced at my watch, realizing I had been waiting for what felt like an eternity. Fear crept up on me, and I couldn't hold back the tears any longer. I sat down on the soft sand, clutching my phone tightly, and called John again. The call went straight to voicemail once more. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. The world seemed to blur around me as I desperately scanned the area, hoping for any sign of him. Time passed, agonizingly slow, and the sinking feeling in my chest only grew stronger. I couldn't help but question my decision to come to the rendezvous point. Had I made a terrible mistake? Was there something I didn't know? As the sun dipped lower on the horizon, casting long shadows on the beach, I couldn't ignore the fact that John was missing, and I was left alone with a sea of unanswered questions. Panic threatened to consume me entirely, and I had no idea what to do next. As the sun continued its descent, casting long shadows on the deserted beach, despair began to settle in. I felt lost and helpless, torn between waiting for John to show up and the overwhelming urge to take action. I had no idea what had transpired, and every minute that passed without any word from him intensified my anxiety. Just when I was about to give up hope and dial the local authorities, something inexplicable occurred. It started as a subtle vibration beneath my feet, like a low-frequency hum. I glanced around, perplexed and frightened, trying to discern the source of the strange sensation. Then, as if the world itself had decided to bend its rules, a blinding light engulfed the area. I instinctively shielded my eyes with my arm, stumbling back in fear and shock. The light was overwhelming, and I couldn't make out anything around me. It felt like I was suspended in time and space, as if reality itself had fractured and reconfigured. Fear and confusion gripped me as I desperately tried to make sense of this surreal experience. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the blinding light dissipated, leaving me standing alone on the beach. I blinked away the residual spots in my vision and slowly looked around, my heart pounding in my chest. Before me stood not one, but two Johns. They looked identical, down to the tiniest detail. It was as if someone had duplicated my husband in that blinding flash of light. My mind struggled to process what I was seeing, and I could only manage a stunned whisper, "John." Both of them approached me cautiously, their expressions a mix of concern and uncertainty. I was frozen in place, unable to comprehend the impossibility before my eyes. As the two identical men approached me cautiously, I felt a dizzying mix of emotions: fear, confusion, and a glimmer of hope. My heart raced, and my mind struggled to grasp the surreal situation unfolding before me. It was like a scene out of a science fiction movie, but I knew this was no dream. The original John, the man I had married just days ago, reached out and gently took my hand. His touch was familiar and reassuring, and I couldn't help but be drawn to him. His voice, steady and calm, broke the tense silence. "Please don't be scared," he said, his eyes locked onto mine. "I promise I'll explain everything, but you need to trust me." The duplicate, John, nodded in agreement, his expression mirroring the original's sincerity. "We're both John, but we're from different timelines. We need your help to fix a temporal anomaly that's threatening our reality. My mind reeled at their words. Different timelines? Temporal anomalies? It was all too much to process. I glanced back and forth between the two Johns, searching for any sign that one of them was an imposter, but they were identical in every way. The original John continued, "The anomaly we're dealing with threatens not only our existence, but the stability of multiple timelines. We can't explain everything right now, but we need your help to make a choice that will determine which timeline prevails and which one ceases to exist." My head was spinning with disbelief and confusion. It felt like I had stumbled into a world of science fiction, a world where the rules of reality no longer applied. I had so many questions, but one thing was clear. I was faced with a choice that would have far-reaching consequences. As the two identical versions of John stood before me, their words hanging in the air like a weighty secret, I struggled to wrap my head around the surreal situation. My mind raced with questions, doubts, and a growing sense of unease. How could this be real? Could I trust these two Johns who claimed to be from different timelines? The original John, the one I had married and loved, reached out to gently squeeze my hand, grounding me in the present. His voice, though filled with urgency, was infused with the familiar warmth that I had come to rely on. "We know this is a lot to take in," he said, his eyes never leaving mine. "But we need your help. The temporal anomaly we're facing threatens not only our lives, but the stability of multiple timelines. Our reality is on the brink of collapse, and we're the only ones who can fix it." The duplicate John nodded in agreement. "We've been trying to rectify this anomaly ever since it first occurred during our honeymoon in a different reality, but it's a complex problem, and we can't do it alone. Your involvement is crucial, and the choice we need you to make is difficult." I finally found my voice, though it trembled with uncertainty. "But how can I possibly help? And what choice do you want me to make?" The two Johns exchanged a knowing glance before the original continued. "You must choose between us, between the John you married and the duplicate from another timeline. Whichever one you choose will return to their respective timeline, and the other will cease to exist." A lump formed in my throat as the gravity of the situation sank in. I had to make an impossible decision that would not only affect my life, but the very fabric of reality itself. The weight of that choice hung heavy in the air, and I knew that I had to choose wisely. As I stood on that beach, caught in the midst of a mind-bending temporal conundrum, the weight of the decision I had to make pressed down on me like a suffocating blanket. The two identical versions of John, one from my reality and one from another timeline, looked at me with anticipation, their eyes filled with a mix of hope and sadness. The original John, the one I had married and shared my life with, gently held my hand as he spoke, his voice filled with a tenderness that had always reassured me. I know this is an impossibly difficult choice, and I wish there were another way. But the anomaly threatens not just our lives, but countless timelines. The fate of our reality rests on your decision. I glanced at the duplicate John, who mirrored the same sincerity and longing in his eyes. "We love you, and we want you to choose with your heart," he added. Tears welled up in my eyes as I looked back and forth between them. I couldn't bear the thought of losing either of them. The original John had been my rock, my partner in life, and the one I had shared my most intimate moments with. The duplicate John, though a stranger from another timeline, had the same memories, the same love for me, and the same hopes for our future. My heart ached as I grappled with the impossible choice. I wanted both Johns, but I knew that wasn't an option. The seconds ticked by, each one filled with the agonizing weight of my decision. With trembling lips, I finally spoke, my voice barely above a whisper. "I choose the John I married." The duplicate John nodded, his eyes filled with understanding and acceptance, even though I saw a glimmer of sadness in them. As he prepared to step back into the uncertain abyss of time and space, I clung tightly to my husband, grateful that we could continue our life together. The duplicate John slowly began to fade away, his form dissipating into nothingness. My heart ached as I watched him go, knowing that I had made the most heart-wrenching decision of my life. As the duplicate John slowly faded away, leaving behind only a lingering echo of his presence, a bittersweet mix of relief and sadness washed over me. I clung to my husband, the John I had married, with a newfound appreciation for the love we shared and the extraordinary journey we had experienced together. The beach, once a place of confusion and uncertainty, now seemed different, almost magical, as if it had witnessed a profound moment in the fabric of reality itself. The sun had dipped lower on the horizon, casting a warm, golden glow over the sand and sea, as if nature itself acknowledged the significance of our decision. My husband held me close, his arms wrapped around me in a protective embrace. I buried my face in his chest, tears of relief and sorrow streaming down my cheeks. The weight of the decision I'd made still hung heavily in the air, but there was solace in knowing that we had chosen to face the uncertainty of our reality together. "We did the right thing," my husband whispered, his voice filled with tenderness. "I love you more than anything, and I'm so grateful that we get to continue our life together." I nodded against his chest, unable to find the words to express the depth of my emotions. In that moment, as we stood on the beach, our love felt stronger than ever, tested and reaffirmed by the extraordinary circumstances we had endured. Our honeymoon, which had begun with panic and uncertainty, had transformed into a unique and unforgettable journey. We had faced the impossible and emerged stronger for it, with a deeper appreciation for the love that bound us together. As we watched the sun set over the ocean, we knew that our life together would be filled with new adventures, and we were ready to face whatever challenges the future held.